good to see so many of you here this morning. Let me very quickly read out some of the names. Hi, Shami, Nidhi, Shrimai, Sneha, G12. You sing too, please let us hear. I don't. Rocking in red, thank you, sweetheart Viji, Art 22. Uma Basu, Sau, Bana, Puja Ma, so sweet. Life coach Asha Soni, I tend to sleep 2 hours in the afternoon. I don't know in what regard you're telling me that, but okay. Life coach Apurva, watching again and again Goddess by Design. That's a beautiful program. If you have that available to you, you can go back and revise it as many times and you'll keep learning new things from it. Vivek Vasanta, super good morning, sweetheart. It was so lovely having you yesterday. Saubana. Just saw your notification on my screen. Welcome, Mandy. Priyanka, I've worked all my life for about 19 years and now I have all the time but don't want to work. I just want to be at peace, go for walks and chill. Is it okay? Priyanka, unfortunately, this world has convinced us. Hey, what happened to the filter? Unfortunately, one second. Unfortunately, this world has somehow convinced us that we were born to work. Well, that's not the truth. The truth is everything that we do in our life was actually meant for us to discover ourselves. So you can discover yourself by being a phenomenal mother. You can discover yourself by being one with nature. You can discover yourself by slowing your speed down. You can discover yourself by serving the world. You can discover yourself by earning money. You can discover when you've done so much of something for such a long time, you've stopped discovering the new or the different or the other side of yourself. And that's why we start to stagnate and that's why we start to get bored. So if you want to chill, go for long walks, I want you to give yourself permission. And sometimes to give yourself permission for the rest of your life doesn't work so well as it does when you say, you know what, I'm going to try this out for 3 months. I'm going to explore this option. And I always have the option to come back and do whatever it is that the world expects out of me or society expects out of me or whatever it is. Like I really want to explore the world, okay? And I want to go stay 3 months in different countries. That is an aspiration I have, and the beauty of my work is it allows me to do that. I'm a gypsy by heart and I feel like, my work is normally like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which means I have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday free, right? So I want to explore that city for 4 days a week, 3 days a week, continue to work from wherever in the world I am, and then keep exploring the world, go to like the naturist places of the world, go sit in New Zealand for 3 months. Now I know that somebody could completely judge me for like, what is this? But my children have left home. I'm an empty nester. I don't have anything to root me here. Puneet and I both love traveling, both love exploring. There are golf courses across the world that he'd love to go and play golf on. So for the kind of couple or relationship or life we have, this can work. Now, what other people think of it, how does that matter? You got what I'm trying to tell you here. I think at some point, and I really feel like, especially women, when they hit 40, I just feel like we're done with the society's norms or people telling us what we should be doing, especially if your children grow up, till your kids are in school, you still have that binding because they need stability and it's our job to give them that platform, right? But once they go out for college or for life or whatever, I feel like that's when we have to really start to go, what is it that I'd love to do? And discovering that is such an important thing. Aman, hi Pooja, your energy is so wonderful. If I want to join life coaching course, can it help me? Yes. But if I will choose it as a career, how can I decide? Because I'm the person how can I decide that I'm the person who can guide others too? So Aman, I'll tell you, Aman or Aman, whatever your name is, I'm sorry, I don't know the pronunciation. I believe every single human being has the capacity to guide others in the topic that they are passionate and working on. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm brilliant with health. I just know what to eat, how much to exercise. I know how I keep myself, and I really work hard on it, let's say, and it's something I'm passionate about. I'm watching reels on it. I'm studying it. I tend to have my own mentors in it. Tell me, whose permission do I need to be able to share this information with the world? Especially, we live in what we call the creator economy. And the creator economy has given each one of us power to share our message directly with the world without needing anything but a Instagram profile, for all you know. True or not? So, if I am brilliant with my children, if I am brilliant with my spouse, if I'm brilliant at running my house, if I'm just brilliant at understanding the dynamics of business or dynamics of wealth or finance, who can stop me, or why should I, whose permission am I waiting for to know whether it's okay to help the world or not? And therefore, I'm not a big judger of, I feel like in India especially, a lot of coaching is attached to your entire persona. And I'll share that with you. So what it means is you have to have your life perfect for you to be able to guide someone else. Wrong. Can I tell you something? Nobody can have life perfect. Nobody. Okay? You'll fix one side will stop working. You'll fix that, something else will stop working. So the best way to look at it is this working in your life? So being authentic and coming from a place of teaching because this is something you understand. If you have that, so when you decide to do the life coaching course, work on your own personality. When some people come and join me, I say first fix your own life. Take one part of your life and make it so mind-blowing that when you become a teacher, nobody asks you from where you got your certification, from where you got your education. They should feel like, she was naturally always like this. Now, if I had to teach how to be positive and high energy, how many people are going to ask me from where do you have your certification? You can see that comes naturally to me. I'm just an optimistic, happy person who knows how to deal with the challenges of life and not take life so seriously. Now, if that's my core, can I help people become happier? I feel so. Correct? Whose permission do I need? Nobody's permission I need. If I do a good job and I collect enough testimonials, the world will trust me. The world will believe me. What is the most important thing? First, I live it. And then my first set of tribe members must get the results that I'm promising. You have these 2 layers done. There's nothing you can't teach, Meri Jaan. No permission but the finance. You don't need much money these days to become a helper in the world. Who's asking you to spend too much money? I believe that yes, if you need to still work with your confidence, it's great to do a phenomenal coaching program, because what that will do is it will set the base right for you. However, I know enough people who are just going out in the world and helping till it is becoming a movement. Shalini, my mom is sweet and helps me raising my babies, but she's becoming toxic and narcissistic way of draining energy. How to handle? So Shalini, the thing is that anytime in life somebody is helping us, they may start to feel like, we can't do without them. And anytime in life we can't do without someone, there's a certain amount of control that we have handed over to them. So I'd love for you to look at, Shalini, how can you take that control back? What is it that you can do with your babies? Can you hire, somebody who can help you, a staff or somebody? And, what is it that you can do? If you can reduce the amount of help you are taking from her, then setting boundaries with her will become much easier. If you are fully dependent on her, then the chances are the person on whom we are more and more dependent tends to start to think of themselves as indispensable and therefore starts to misbehave in a manner because they know you can't do without them. So anytime I see someone misbehaving with me, it is a reminder that I'm getting too dependent on them and they are taking advantage of that energy or that need of mine. Okay, so as much as you can, make yourself independent of your surroundings as much as you can. If you still need her, you can still ask for help, but I'd love for you to start to look at How can my husband pitch in? How can my mother-in-law pitch in? How can my staff pitch in? How can I pitch in? How can we create a calendar where it's not all on her so that her toxicity can be controlled? Dr. Fatima, ma'am, please reply how to set boundaries with a toxic mother-in-law. So how you do that is that actually, honestly, it's more requests than boundaries with people who are above you in hierarchy. Okay. So if you go and use the card of, and especially because you're using the word toxic, I love to first sit down and explore with my spouse what is possible, what is not possible. Okay, what are the things that she's doing? If you can make a list of all that is upsetting you, normally it will be 1, 2 or 3 things. She's, not letting any staff settle down in the house, or she's using me as the cook full time, or she has these expectations that I'm not able to keep up to. So what is it that she's doing? First, let's notice that. And then in that, what are you willing to do and what are you not willing to do? What are your negotiables? What are your non-negotiables? And how can you communicate your non-negotiables so that they are heard? So I always say with in-laws, it's always requests. It can't be too many boundaries unless your spouse is helping you put them. He can set boundaries on his parents. It's very hard for a daughter-in-law, especially in India, to set clear boundaries because the consequences could be that they could be in charge of your money, they could be in charge of your spouse, they could be in charge of the household. So I don't know what level of control she has. So therefore, I am suggesting that, start to have conversations. Now, in some places, you may get stuck, but I want you to treat all conversations as levels rather than trying to get it perfect from the day one. And I'll explain what I'm trying to tell you here. Let's say you are cooking all the 3 meals right now and you hate cooking. To go in to have a conversation where you're trying to set boundaries around the fact that, I don't want to cook will be a very extreme step. Instead, I want you to go level by level by level. Let's say level 1 is just not doing the breakfast. I'll do the lunch and dinner, but somebody needs to help me with the breakfast. We need to get either a part-time cook or someone to come in and help, And then once you have that set, you move to level 2 of whatever your demands are. And then when you have that set, sometimes we go in because we're so upset and we're having such a visceral reaction to the way we are being treated that we've gone totally negative. And when we go totally negative, we start setting strict boundaries in a situation where first there is no wall itself, there's no gate itself. Where will the boundaries? There's no boundary line itself, right? So I think a very important thing to do is to start to also have open communication with your spouse. After all, it's his mother and he's the one who needs to guide you a lot more. A lot of times what we do is in hating her, we start hating him, or we bring in that hatred in our relationship. I always say it's so important that you and your spouse combine together to handle her. Now he knows her for his entire life, okay, and she may be completely different with him than she is with you, and so that's what you need him to eventually see, which means instead of criticizing her for some time, I want you to take guidance from him. As you take guidance from him, it becomes his responsibility to make sure that you get what you need from her. So if he says, okay, Monday to Friday, you just cook all the 3 meals. I know it's unreasonable, but I'll at least begin with her doing Saturday, Sunday. And you go, okay, done. Let's at least start there. Now what you've done is you've got him on your side. How do you get the man on your side? By listening to some suggestion of his that is not completely reasonable, but he knows that, but he knows that he will be working through this situation with you now rather than against you. So you have to become someone who who needs to have the patience to build your life overall over time rather than trying too hard to get rid of the toxicity, because at the age she is now, it's very difficult to change her. She is who she is. So your attempt to change her will not work. Your attempt to set very strong boundaries may or may not work. You'll have to see what works for you. Okay, and keep attempting till you find ways and routes where your life starts to come back into your control. any suggestion I give here is going to be hard. Okay, so for all of you here who are like, it doesn't work, or it doesn't, she won't listen, or this won't happen, or whatever, you have to begin somewhere, right? So I want you to become the smarter person in the relationship. Can you at least attempt doing that? Nothing happens in one go, but everything can happen by the end of it. Do you have the patience to take and maneuver the river to the ocean you want it to go? I know easier said than done, but I have enough clients who've done it for me to know that once you decide that you want to be the larger one and not, when you fight with people at their same level, they'll always beat you because they've done PhD in the keychair. You have to get out of the keychair and start to operate the energy. Otherwise, you'll remain stuck there only. उन्होंने ये बोल दिया, उन्होंने ये कर दिया, आज उन्होंने ये drama कर दिया, and you keep entertaining the drama, you will be remaining in the drama. You have to move out and go, what is it I want in my life? The people who have clarity on what it is they want in their life tend to succeed a lot more than the ones who are busy shutting others down. Got it? Mrunal Dabir, I have enrolled for the June 21st batch. Can life coach training be used to improve the organizational culture? 100%. Life coach, see, anywhere you can improve the individual, you can improve the collective. Okay, so normally what happens in most corporates, people work on the collective to improve the individual. But I'm a big believer, you work on the individual, the collective has to improve. Bhuvna 1393, hi, can you please talk about consistency? So I wanted to understand a few things about consistency. One is that consistency is built over time in some areas of our life in terms of how we prioritize our own value system. So where will you see yourself most consistent? Where you are in complete alignment with your values. Let's say your health is very important to you. You will see consistency in that area. Let's say your relationships are very important to you. You'll see consistency there. Let's say your husband or your children are very important to you. You will see consistency in motherhood and in being wife. So where does our consistencies live? Our consistencies live in alignment with our value system. So it's not like nobody is consistent. One person is not consistent at all. One person is consistent completely. No, it all depends on what is your value system. If you want to check out the successes of your life, there is consistency in your value system. Where do consistencies not live? Where the thing is not a priority. So what do we need to do to get consistent in things that are not a priority? Attach them to our value system. So I'll give you an example. Let's say my priority is not health. Okay, like I just take that for granted. I'm a generally overall a fit person. Nothing great, nothing less. Can I exercise a little more every week? I can and should, but it's a should. And mind you, if it's not in your value system, it's a should normally. Okay, so I should be exercising more, but I don't tend to because nothing is there to motivate me to do that. But I keep writing it in my goals that, start strength training, start this, start that. I'm just giving you a rough example just for you to start to understand what I'm trying to tell you here. But let's say for me, my children and grandchildren are very important. Okay. And my grandchildren are running around the house and because I started to have a slight knee pain, I'm starting to not being able to cope with the speed of my grandchildren. Now my grandchildren are important, so therefore exercise will become important. So what am I doing? I'm stacking what is important to me to prioritize something that's not important. So whenever you in life, you will stack. Like I love running a business. I don't like to look at the finances, the financials and all of the assets and liabilities and profit and loss and balance sheets and this and that. I just get lost in all of that. But I love building a business, and one of the things I have learned over time is if you really want to make smart decisions in your business, you must know on a daily basis what your financials look like. Not on a weekly or a monthly, on a daily basis. So I've trained myself that to make smarter decisions in business, I must get a daily report that I must study of my financials. Now, I don't like financials. I love business. Combine it together, you'll start to prioritize. The prioritization or consistency of something comes when we know our why. Why do you need to do something? People will come and tell me, Pooja, I want to wake up at 4:30 like you in the morning. Why? What is it that you're going to do at 4:30 that you can't do at 8:30? You have to know your why. Because when we have a strong why, our motivation is high. When we don't have a strong why, we will do it for 2-3 days because of the shoulds that are being put on us. And then we will, like, I have a teacher, his name is Alex Hamrozi, very smart fellow. And he says after he finishes work, he wants to waste time. He wants to watch TV mindlessly. He wants to do things that are not supposed to be done because that's how he operates. He's like, I don't want to have a, even in my fun time or even in my ease time or even in my relaxed time, I don't want to be like, okay, we need to get this done. And in my relaxed time, I must get off my phone and I must read a book and I must do this. And he's like, I don't want to. Either I'm going to be productive or I'm going to be super lazy, and that's going to be my combination. Something that he's decided to do. Okay. So I'd love for you to start to anywhere where you're seeing you're not being consistent. I can already predict for you that neither is that thing important nor is that thing urgent. You bring urgency, it will start to happen. You bring importance, it will start to happen. If these two are missing, things won't happen. Okay. Now you're like, no, they are urgent and important. In the imaginary world. In your imagination, they are important. In your life, they are not. And can I tell you, the day they do get important, how do I know that people are consistent naturally? Because I'll ask mothers, I'll say, how many of you think you're procrastinators in the room? And they'll raise their hand. And I'll be like, have you ever missed feeding your child even one meal? How come? How come you've never missed feeding one meal also? I mean, after all, your personality doesn't have consistency, right? So how are you consistently doing something 3 times a day? Simple. It's urgent. It's important. You bring in urgency. You bring in false urgency and importance also. Like one of the things I do whenever I want to build a business is invest into something that is greater than my current size of my business. So let's say I decide to take any example. I decide to put 1 crore of rupees in stocks and shares. Now to put that crore, I need to raise my business to this level, dash level, right? So now it will happen because I've set a target for myself. It's a false or a fake ambition or a fake or a false goal. It is just to motivate me here because I've put that as a target. Okay. So the more targets you set for yourself and then the more important you make it. Now, when I make that important, so I'm like, okay, fine. It's my husband's 50th birthday. If I have that kind of cash, I can buy him a car next year when it comes for his 50th birthday. Now, who's important? My husband's important. His 50th birthday is important. I want to buy him a car. What are the chances that I'll make the crore? If I just say I want to make a crore, it may not happen. But if I say I want to do it for that, it may happen. So what am I doing? I am building meaning into something that had no meaning. Okay, so see if you can work with any of this and start to stop telling yourself I'm not a consistent person. That is one of the reasons why you're not being consistent. Rather start to notice. Look, I'm consistently brushing my teeth every day. I'm consistently having a bath. I'm consistently start to notice in every place that you are consistent because there are a set of habits that you're doing a phenomenal job of. And there are a set of habits that need to be stacked on top of those. Yeah. Let's go right to the bottom so that I can look at the questions. You're looking like a Christmas tree. Or Christmas time, okay. Eternally yours. I am a housewife and my husband doesn't respect me for the chores that I do. Is it necessary to earn money to get respect? So what I want you to start to understand is that God created the masculine and the feminine. He made the masculine physically strong. He made the feminine emotionally strong. And he then used both of us or the two categories to kind of collaborate together to build a beautiful life. Now, because of them being physically stronger and the world being an unsafe place, they started to go out and become economically strong, while the woman started to look after the home and give the support that the man would require for him to be able to do what he does. Somewhere along the way, the world started to honor him for what he was doing so visibly well, and started to put her down because whatever she was doing was not visible enough, because that was coming free, because that was not measurable or tangible. So therefore it became, I remember I heard this story about a lady who got cancer, who used to run her house, and within a month of her passing away, her husband had kept a driver for the children, tuition teachers, nurse for his parents, cook in the house. Like, it was literally like 6 people had to replace that single woman. So unfortunately, we now live in a world where the woman is only getting the respect that she deserves is by matching the man rather than collaborating with the man. Can I tell you, the biggest loss in this situation is going to be of the man. The man is losing out on his greatest cheerleader, his biggest supporter, who was giving him the platform to perform. Okay, and now what has happened? You are also working, I am also working, so we will divide the duties at home also equally. You do the dishes, I'll do the cooking, you do that, you do that. So the prince or the king that had been for so long enjoying this very, pedestal-like status is losing all of that. So yes, I am going to say the truth is that the world we currently live in, working women get a lot more respect than the housewife or the mother, because we use sentences like just a housewife, just a mother. But if I had to be reincarnated as a man, I would be smart enough to honor my woman enough to be able to help her create the life I want. Because you know what? A husband and wife that come together to play the gender roles beautifully, if that's something she enjoys. And can I tell you, when a woman is beautifully looked after, she moves into her highest feminine, which is nurturing. She nurtures the children, she nurtures the home, she nurtures the man, and that's what society actually needs. They don't need any more working people. Okay, but what to do now when we are not going to get the respect? We are not going to live as second grade citizens. We are not going to live as the liabilities of the world while they are called the assets of the world. We are not going to take this discrimination. So you know what? I feel like the next 10 years is the decade of the woman, where the woman is going to show the man that, you know what? I'm not only equally capable, I just may be beyond your capability, because what you have gotten for so many years, because I'm going to be doing it for the first time, I'm going to give it my 100%. And when a woman gives her 100% at work, she outbeats the man. It's shown again and again and again that the woman has started to outbeat the man in the workplace. But overall, if you had to ask me, as a society, it's not a great model. You know what it's doing? The woman was never designed for that level of 6 days a week kind of a work. A man can. He's like a horse. He can wear blinkers and keep doing that. For the feminine, she starts to fatigue. She starts to burn out. So it's very important that we do not take the design of the man. I'm a complete working woman, but I honor my divine feminine a lot, which is why 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are my working days. 4 days a week, I have day where I just pamper myself. Though that's my day to go and color my hair grey when my grey start to show, go to the salon, go for massage, go for shopping, go for my coffee with my friends, because I know 1 day a week I need to do the feminine so that I don't get burnt out or get fatigued, right? I also have lots of other rituals to keep myself in a more feminine state, or the divine feminine state, which I think is a must for women. Otherwise, what will happen is, yes, we'll outbeat the man, but you know what? What we really need is love, respect, being looked after. The woman is the womb. The womb is the receiver of life, the receiver of abundance, the receiver of money, the receiver of, we are meant to be the receivers. When we become the givers all the time, what's going to happen is we are going to run out of our battery. So where in life can you start to receive? Becoming a sacred receiver is a quality a woman has to, what do you call that? create. It doesn't come naturally to her. She's a natural giver, but when she turns a receiver, which means she needs a good man, a good environment, a good setup, a good everything, and that is so wonderful when she receives. Got it? Super. I'm very passionate about this topic, so I've got a little carried away, but let's go back to the questions. I am going to teach house chores to my son. I love that, Mohini. You're so right in saying that, Mohini, because really the truth is that the mothers today are responsible for the boys that are getting created for the next generation. Pooja ma'am, how do I move on from my mother who abandoned me at 15? I want to move on from the hurt, but I don't know how. So Shruti, one of the things we have to understand is that those who don't have strong parents have a divine connection and a divine protection from God. Okay, so you have to start to look for beyond your mother. How has your life been phenomenal? We get stuck with the one thing we don't have and we forget to notice all that we do have. Okay, so maybe today the woman you have become, the strength that you carry, the ability to be that independent person, all of that comes because of that abandonment. Now, for a moment, try to imagine that you were a soul in heaven, and when God asked you to come down, He wanted you to, let's say, show the world what independent woman looks like, or a person who knows how to be emotionally completely in charge. He needed you to go through a few experiences in your childhood so that you become that as the adult. So the experiences He's given you is this. And once you start to accept the lesson from the experience, the lesson fizzles away. God then replaces your life with, instead of abandonment, He will fill it up with people because you deserve the opposite. Okay, so let's say I'm born in a lot of scarcity. I'm just giving you an example, right? So I'm born in a lot of scarcity and I have seen poverty at a very close quarter, and I have decided that, you know what, money is something that's very important in this world. You know, money is important, and that's what I've learned because of the scarcity that I saw. And I start to work on my money energy, and I start to make sure I add value in the world, and I start to become rich. Now, for the rest of my life, I will be rich. But every time I will look back at my childhood, and if I keep saying, you know, why in my childhood was I so poor? Why in my childhood I couldn't wear that dress on the birthday party that other people could wear? And you keep questioning that, you will forget to see that the life you have got created because of the depravities, things that we were deprived of in our childhood. 90% of adults are basically chasing all that they were deprived of when they were young. Okay, so people who didn't get love will chase love. People who didn't get money will chase money. I didn't get education. I chased education because I got married at 18. So everybody, first God has to remove that from your life for you to have value for that in your life so that you go out and get it. Now, another thing I'll tell you, Shruti, the kind of mother you will be, you know, your children are going to be lucky to have you. One of the things I've noticed is that the mothers who don't have mothers are brilliant mothers. So if that's the gift you've brought to the world, I want you to start to notice the gifts. Your life will be filled with love because you didn't have it in the first 15 years. Now, how are you going to make sense of it? If you keep living in lack, the lessons will not end. People will keep abandoning you. Your pattern will be abandonment. But the day you start to be the love you've always wanted, you are going to start to shower other people with that love, and people are going to start to get attracted to you. And eventually a day will come where you'll say, if I had to relive my entire childhood to get to this place, I would do it. For example, I say that now. I'm so glad that I was deprived of the education, because the reason I'm the most educated person in India in self-help industry is not a coincidence. It is because of that was taken away from me that I went chasing it. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you here? Lovely. I really loved your book. Thank you. Sudha Kumar, how to deal with a mother who's critical, negative, compares unhealthy ways in spite of boundaries. I don't know how old you are, but the older you are, the faster you need to start to move into, I call it the 3 levels of parent. The level 1 of parent is when they are your heroes. Okay, where you think your parents can do no wrong. You have grown up with that being the energy, correct? And you are always thinking that they must be the role models of your life. And a time comes when you hit like 12, 13, 14, 15, where the parents' pedestal starts to fall. Sometimes a little later, sometimes a little earlier, depending on where your situation and what your life looks like. But a lot of times that can happen. And then for some years in your life, you can see everything wrong in your parents. It's very visible to you how they've messed up their lives, what they haven't done right. The good doesn't show, but what they haven't done right becomes very, very this thing. And what that does is it helps you build in your life the mistakes that they have made in theirs. So you'll end up becoming the opposite of whatever it is that they tend to do. So if they are critical, you won't be critical. If they are comparing, you won't be comparing. If they are unhealthy, you'll start to choose more healthier, because their life's mistakes start to become your lessons without you having to experience the lessons, right? And then a stage must come of what I call deep acceptance, where you go, jaise bhi hai, mere hain. Now you've reached a place of power, you've reached a place of knowing yourself, you've reached a place of not being fully now any longer dependent on them. Rather, they are starting to turn dependent on you. So therefore, then you move into what you call deep acceptance. So hero worship, onto them falling off the pedestal, call that period whatever you like. You know, the rosy tinted glasses coming off and you realizing they are as flawed as anybody else. And then moving into deep acceptance. And the faster you move into deep acceptance, the more peace you will feel in your life. Because our parents are the roots of the trees that we are growing on. The branches, the fruits, the flowers will be as good as how we treat the roots. Now, if we have weak roots, what's going to happen to our tree? The more deep acceptance, the faster the deep acceptance, the lesser the destruction of the tree. Therefore, the roots are then able to give you that you need. So I believe that there are a few relationships where dropping judgment is not just a good thing to do. It's actually like a very important thing to do. It's actually should be mandatory. And that's one thing I would say about parents, is that it should be, we have to at some point get out of judgment and move into pure love. Just the way they did that for us when we were little kids, like, you know, whatever we did, farted or shat or vomited or whatever, they did the cleaning and kept us going without any judgment. We have to then return the favor at some point. Sorry for the crude example. Palak so rightly said, because my mother was always bitter and I believe I'm such a sweet mother. Every time I get angry, I get reminded of my mom who used to shout, and the whole anger intentionally just melts away. Great that you're noticing it. Sonali, I've come across couples where the man doesn't respect even if his wife is working, even if she's a doctor, teacher or anybody for that matter. So how to get respect, importance, priority in a man's life? Stop wanting that as an expectation. Okay, so while I was talking, because the question was in regard to, I couldn't cover the whole context of working women, not working women and all of that. When you are a working woman, your need for respect from him starts to reduce, because you know what happens? You start respecting yourself. And the more deeply you respect yourself, we all have this emptiness inside, where either we can go looking, being beggars as I call it, for validation across the world. Please like me, please compliment me, please notice me, please, love me. A lot of women who work very heavily on their exterior need a lot more validation. That's pretty much why they are, unless it's a value system of yours. A lot of us. So your fancy bags, your diamonds, your shoes, your hair, your makeup, your clothes, your everything is telling people, notice me. And that's one energy, right? Now, another energy of just owning your own self and starting to go, when you sit in your silence, when you sit in your spirituality, when you are deeply connected with the divine, you will notice that there is a liberation and a freedom that starts to come in your personality, which is what other people think of me is not important. Including what my husband thinks of me is not important. And you know what? The more liberated you get, the higher the opinion of other people. The more desirous you remain, beggar as I may call it, the lesser the chances of you getting respect. And I know this from my personal experience of life that I'm sharing this with you. I think I spent the first 10 years just trying to impress my husband. And guess what was the one thing I couldn't achieve? Impressing him. And the day I stopped trying and I just started to work on who I am becoming in the journey of life, I feel like today he has so much more respect for me because it's not even an ask from my side. You want to respect me? That's great. You don't know how to respect me? Talk to me when you can. I know easier said than done, but you know what? That's the level of power we all need to move into as women, because I think for too long, almost for the last 500 years, one of the things that happened to women was that economically, because we were the lesser ones in the world and our men controlled our finances, somewhere it has become that, you know, the man doesn't need to respect. So in their DNA, respect disappeared. And in our DNA, self-respect also disappeared. And we need to bring that back now. Coach KKR, Pooja ma'am, I come to see you online because I miss your voice and I'm charged up by your kind help to your audience. So sweet. Thank you, KKR. Life coach Rashmi is asking how to take failures as motivation. More than taking failures as motivation, I like to take failures as tweaking. Okay, so anything I do in my life, when I do it the first 3 times, I call it my exploration stage, which means I'm allowed to make as many mistakes because I'm a learner, right? Then I move into experimenting, and which is here now I'm starting to fix whatever I'm not getting right. So I keep fixing, redoing, redoing till I move into expert stage, which is now I know exactly how to do this. So when I don't call anything that I do wrong as failure. I just go, I was in exploration, I'm still learning here. I was in experimenting, I'm still fixing here. Now I'm an expert. To become an expert, you have to go through the learning, fixing stage or the exploring, experimenting stage, to which we tend to call that failures. Okay? Even if you don't land up doing what it is that you did and you failed at, you are a better version of yourself because you've learned something from that. And that learning will take you to the next level. So imagine your destination is to go on top of the mountain and there are some 15 routes to go on top of the mountain, and you start off on the route which has the maximum trees and thorns. And then midway through you go off to another route which has flowers and gardens, and then midway through you go to another which has an escalator up, and then you reach a lift and you take the lift right up to. Now you can't look back and say, oh, the first half of my journey I was such a failure because I was stuck in the forest. I took 10 years in the forest before I could come till the lift. I should have straight taken the lift top. You can't arrive at the escalators and lifts of life if you don't go through the forests and the gardens. Got it? So I don't know. I'm not a big believer of this word itself, failure and all that. Swati, that's too sweet. How to stop loving you? Don't. Please don't. You're too cute. I loved your free gift, Pooja ma'am. More gratitude to you and your team. Oh, I'd love to know. You know, yesterday, because of the time and I ran out of time so badly, I didn't even ask how was the experience or how did the session go for you. So for anybody who's in this room right now and was there in the Science of Spirituality session yesterday, I'd love to know in the chat box, what was your biggest takeaway? I'd love to go down and read what was your takeaway from yesterday. It'll not only be lovely for me, it'll also help the room understand what's that one thing that you're going to start to do, or what was your biggest takeaway from yesterday. Let's share it with the room of those who couldn't make it yesterday. Yeah. Isha Gupta, what if you actually did get a very good education and career, but now decided to choose entrepreneurship and you lack consistency? Will looking back at how hard you worked in your childhood help? I am 30. You know what? I think the most important question to ask yourself is, what is it in life that you're looking for? What is it that need? And then connect your values, your needs, your wants, your desires to create an action. I feel like if looking at your childhood makes you feel like, okay, wow, I did a lot of hard work there, the hard work of the childhood paid off in the childhood. Maybe you were brilliant in school, maybe you were brilliant in sports, maybe you were brilliant in whatever. Now you need to see, what do you want? Okay? But now I've decided to choose entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a completely different ball game. My suggestion, go exploring, go experimenting till you become an expert. Okay? So now you'll have to start from scratch on that. Anything that you've already worked very hard on, brilliant. That's giving you the results. Now you want to change gear. You're going to have to start from scratch. And sometimes starting from scratch feels very demoralizing because you're so used to being a superstar in another environment. But can I tell you, your superstardom in the new environment comes much faster than for most people, because you already know how to be one in another environment. So I remember at one point my dad plays golf, and Kapil Dev had just retired from cricket, and it was, I think, his first or second day at the golf course. And within the first week, he was better than most people at golf on the golf course. In less than 2 weeks, he was able to play with the champions of golf. And I remember asking my dad, how's that possible? And he said, Pooja, he understands bat and ball in his body. He understands technique. He understands, like all of the explanation that he gave me only made sense to me because, yeah, that's so true that he was already brilliant somewhere else. He just needed to come and learn the techniques here for him to be brilliant here too. So one of the things I'd love for you to do is, I don't want you to think of, oh, I was so brilliant there, I'm not brilliant here. I want you to know, because you were brilliant there, your journey here will be so much more faster. Okay? Just that we have to be patient because we're so used to that adulation, that recognition, that being a beginner anywhere is hard. Okay, everybody write this down. Being a beginner is hard, the middle is chaotic, the end is beautiful. The beginner is hard. Anything you start, you decide you want to cycle today, you want to learn a language, you want to learn swimming, it's hard. In the middle, it's chaotic. You don't know where you are going with this. I hope it works out. I hope I reach the destination. I hope I land up learning the language. I hope I land up swimming properly. And then in the end, you feel so good about the journey. To go from the unpredictable to the predictable, to know that you've done it. Such a good feeling. Nikita, hi Pooja, I am your student, did your course last year. I want to thank you for all your energy and enthusiasm. I have finally written a book and would love to send you a copy. Nikita, just be in touch with my team and they'll be happy to send you my office address for me to receive your book, and massive congratulations on your success. Love and Life School. How to come back into alignment of my business after a long break because of more responsibility of family and health issues. I'm didn't getting the fire like when I started. I love to hear from you, my angel. And that's the thing, you know what? When you come back to something that's no longer your baby or how you were when you were with it initially, it's going to be all again about restarting. So when you restart, you go back into exploring, explore different departments, explore different areas of where it is that you starting to bring that fire back, or you are starting to get joy. Where you're, I go for these long holidays sometimes, and there are days when I come back and I'm like, oh gosh, where do I start now? Like, I really need to make up my mind on, just getting back into that energy takes a while. I remember we had gone for a trip to Peru last year, and both my son and I, every time we were talking after that, he was getting back to his job, I was getting back to my work, and both of us were struggling with this same impact or effect that, we're just not able to reconnect to. And then you do the things and it comes. Okay, so I think initially you just have to be kind to yourself till you get back into wherever it was that you started out. So will it happen? Yes. Will it take time? Yes. Will you have to be patient with getting back that fire? Yes. But this is what I will promise you. You kindle it long enough, it will come back. It's not that you've lost it. It is just that it is right now not visible to you. But if you keep working on different areas and discovering every day what it is you love to do, suddenly you'll discover something that will have you charged up. So anytime I start losing my fire in my work, one of the things I do is I start creating a brand new course. Because I know for me, course creation is a place where I get very, very excited. Just yesterday, the whole science of spirituality was just because I had just come back from Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I felt like, you know what, there's so much of what he's taught inside of me that I need to pour it out on someone. And my beautiful community or tribe were so lovely to have 500 of you come in yesterday simply to just receive that information was just too sweet. Irene Matilda, how to know who are your true friends, and what if you don't feel completely happy in midst of the group of friends, especially just cause of a few in the group? Irene, actually what I have seen about friendship is that friendship is need based. What do I mean by that? Let's say I enjoy coffee, okay, going out for a coffee. I want to look for people who like sitting in coffee shops and chatting. Let's say I enjoy movies. Then I want to create a group of friends to be able to go watch movies. I have a group of friends that loves traveling because I love traveling. I have a group of friends that loves discussing self-help. We are all from the same industry, so we just keep discussing work and business and industry standards and all of that. So when you understand what this friendship is bringing for you, that's a far more mature friendship than friendship that we used to think of when we were younger. You're my best friend, you are my, I don't know if best friendship exists so much as you become adults, because everybody starts to get busy with their family and family starts to come first. And so because you have a spouse, you have children, life takes over. Yet having said that, if you have a friend that you can do a 3 a.m. call with, that's always great, right? So knowing what is the purpose of this friendship? This friendship is just for comfort, my ability to fall back. This friendship is for life lessons, I have a friendship where I really love both these women as mothers. So I take a lot of my parenting advice from these two ladies. So I really honor their friendship. Some friendships are just for fun. Like, Saturday nights, meetups and all of that. Now, as far as coming to the fact that there is a group of friends and you don't like a few people in it, I feel like in every group there will always be 1 or 2 people that are not your energy and 1 or 2 people who totally match your energy. Nurture the ones that you absolutely love and start to learn to be respectful from a distance with the ones that you don't truly really care too much for. Sometimes what happens is we get confused and we start to believe that in every group we must get along with everybody. That's not even possible. There is something called group within groups. You know that? So you have to learn to respect the groups while learn to nurture yours. So if there's a group of 8, you'll have your own ka 3. And in that 3, be as respectful as you can of the others. A lot of friendships are formed by discussing other people in the group. I feel like that turns the energy of the group very toxic. So you want to avoid, as a rule, discussing other people who belong to the same group. Just make it a rule for your own integrity and your own high standards that I don't want to discuss anybody else, but I really want to nurture and love the people I'm with. Now, if someone chooses to discuss other people, I'm sitting to hear them out, but I'm not willing to participate in it. Okay? So there are people who are evolved enough who don't choose to discuss other people from the same group. And I feel like the reason I want to belong to a group is so that I know that I have the safety that no one here will discuss me. And I want to first give that to the whole group before I demand that of them. So the groups that have worked out in my life for the long run are the groups where nobody really cares about discussing one another. Most of them just want to come in and have fun. I feel like those groups have worked better for me than the ones where there is a lot of crosstalk. And crosstalk is such a dangerous, toxic thing to do, because abhi you'll be friend with this one, so you will say something here. Next day you'll be friend with the other one, then what you discussed here goes here, and all the time it creates misunderstandings and rubbish energy. And I mean, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of that kind of energy itself. All right, we're almost close to 10:58. Let's get a picture. What happened? No, my heart is not working today. What about the thumbs up? Oh, so nice. Let's go right to the bottom. I'm so happy that I've been chosen by the universe to be a part of this. You're so rich in experiences. Thank you for sharing it so beautifully. I listen again to all your programs. Lovely. For all of you who are asking why we didn't get to know about the program, it is because the Science of Spirituality was only offered to people who are in my coaching certification program. If you're not a part of coaching certification, then that won't come to you, right? Lovely, fabulous. All right, you know the drill. Take a picture, put it on your stories. Tell me what was your biggest takeaway from today. And I will see you again next week with a brand new episode on Insta Live. Thank you everybody for coming. Bye. Love you loads. Sorry if I couldn't answer your question. It wasn't intentional. I promise I can never finish answering all the questions.